So, you have a tent and a rig, and you love overlanding. You have plans to do it big, on the trails and some super glamping? Want ideas, tips, news, and reviews? A podcast that's first rate and here just for you? You don't have to think about it. Join us and be about it. Something interesting? We want to hear about it. Come on, let's talk about it. Welcome to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints podcast.
Sponsored by Midland, communication for every adventure. The industry leader in radio communication technology and innovation for over 50 years. Sponsored by MYMEDIC. Sponsored by TEMBO TUSK. Sponsored by Trail Rated Coffee Company.
Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
All right, so here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Random Waypoints podcast. We'll be doing an episode every week, so like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to make sure you don't miss an episode. This week, we have a returning special guest, Michael LADDEN from Drive the Globe. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me on, Phil. And as always, it's a pleasure.
Same here, same here. So let's jump right into it. I want to talk about what you've been doing for the past few weeks. You know, we hung out at Overland Expo, which turned out to be totally awesome. And you've been doing your thing and I've been doing your thing. So let's talk about that. What have you been doing?
Since I last saw you at Overland in Flagstaff, Arizona, I headed to Colorado. And then from there, I went with a group of friends and spent some time in Utah, backcountry, BLM land, sort of near Canyonlands. And then I am now in Wyoming, came out here for an event called Wind River Rally. I'm in Wind River. I'm actually in Lander, Wyoming. Never really been to Wyoming before. I've driven Route 80 and I think I skied at Jackson Hole, but first time to Wyoming, absolutely beautiful state.
All right. Well, I want to break down Wyoming with you. First, I want to talk about the event. Could you say the name of it just one more time?
It's called the Wind River Rally, and it was put on by an organization called the Journal of Lost Time. And that's actually the second event I went to that they put on. They did one in Bisbee, Arizona a couple months back. And it's a good, I would say the turnout was about 150 trucks.
And so what goes on there? Give me the story.
So I'll come down in a second. See, this is what happens. It's basically a van life, schooly overland event. People show up. We had some live music, a couple sponsors. The town of Hudson, Wyoming, where it was held in, is tiny. So they all rolled out the street carpet, I guess, if you will, and it was great. You know, one local restaurant and a local bar, and some beer sponsors up there, and I think the DJ went till 3:00 in the morning one night. So good times.
Oh wow! So was that an advantage or a disadvantage? The town being so small.
I think it made it interesting. Let's just say that. I think the disadvantage is not too far. So I'm in Lander, Wyoming right now. It's only about 12 miles down the road. And this is a pretty good sized town. So no, it was out in the country. The locals were just unbelievably friendly though. I mean, everybody we met over there had heard, it's like, oh, you must be the van guys. You must be the trucks that are in town. So it went good. It was good.
Wyoming is someplace that I've been a few times, but I've never really done the whole state. So I still don't know Wyoming. But everywhere I've gone in Wyoming, I think is a very beautiful place. So you were definitely in a beautiful spot.
The thing with Wyoming, I think a lot of people don't know, is it is the least populated state in America, and it's the 10th largest by land area. So there's only like about 550,000 people total in the entire state of Wyoming.
Yeah, I've heard nothing good about them. I've heard those stats that you just said. And I've also heard that there's a surge of businesses moving there because it's more business friendly than a lot of states that are surrounding it.
Correct.
Most of my experiences in Wyoming are Yellowstone, Jackson, Wyoming. And that's a lot of people, but that does not give you a true understanding of the state. Once you get out of that touristy area right there, it changes dramatically, in my opinion, not just in landscape, but in personalities of the people and everything. So do you see yourself coming back to Wyoming soon? Is it still on your list to?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm leaving this location tomorrow, heading towards just right outside the Tetons and Jackson, on my way to Overland Expo in Oregon. But so I'll get to see I'll get to drive across the state at least. So, not that I'm going to spend a lot of time on this trip, but I get a kind of a view, an overview, which is what I like to do anyways, travel, sort of see everything the first time as an overview and then go back to places that I saw that are like, fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Well, the drive from where you're going, I've mentioned it offline with you, the drive you're going to be taking to get to Overland Expo Pacific Northwest, that's going to be a beautiful drive for you. You got a couple of choices of how to get there, and all of them are beautiful drives.
Yeah.
What did you do in Colorado? You went there first, right?
Yeah, so I have a friend that has a property there that has a shop, works on vehicles. So I kind of use that as a base camp to explore the western slope of Colorado, Telluride, Silverton, Montrose, a bunch of different towns on the western slope and up into the mountains. A couple trips up into, on the western side. So I never realized Colorado. My familiarity with Colorado was more on the Front Range. And on the western side, I never realized how desert-like. It's very similar to Utah on the western side. So, but got to explore it like that for, a couple of weeks. So it was great.
Something else I wanted to talk to you about was when you went to the swells. Yep. What was that like? I have something to say about it after you finish, but what was that like?
It was one of the places that I've been that if you want to get out there and go explore and not see any people, that is the place to go. Let me tell you. We were probably 45, 50 miles off the road on BLM, dirt track. At times was, very washboardy, but it's out there. I mean, it kind of borders, I'll call it it's sort of the backcountry of Moab and Canyonlands and Arches. It's all kind of in that same area. And we got to do some hikes down into a couple, I would call them areas that people probably just never go, but unbelievable. Got to see the Green River, up that far north, similar to, where you and I were a lot farther south of that. But just crazy scenery and just no people at all. So that was amazing. That the weather was great, and I actually got my motorcycle stuck. I always say, sometimes I use the truck as base camp, and I go off and explore on the motorcycle. Well, I went out with two guys with a Toyota Land Cruiser and a four-wheel drive pickup, and I ended up having to ditch the bike and park it and finish part of the road with them because it was just so sandy. I was walk a bike. So anyways, but that was, and it was out there. I mean, way out there in BLM land.
So the reason why I asked you about the swells is because I truly did want to know, how did you enjoy yourself? But I keep up with social media, and after you guys went, there was like 10 other groups of people who had no idea about it, but they saw you and they decided to go into the same area. So I thought that was kind of funny. Just you posting, so many people showed up. You were talking about it's kind of like a secret, even though it's right there. It's easy to get to. It's right in the Moab area. But still, a lot of people don't know about it. Like I like to go to Hanksville, which is when I'm people drive that road all the time, but they never veer off of it. So that's like one of the few places still in southern Utah that's kind of unexplored by a majority of people. They kind of overlook it heading to the more popular places.
Yeah, for sure. And some of the roads are, I will say that some of the roads are four-wheel drive necessary, particularly, you know, the offshoot roads that go towards the canyons and go towards the river. The main road is just, you know, just like typical anywhere else. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. But yeah, fascinating. I mean, Utah right now is ranking in my top 1 state.
Well, it's not my number 1 state, but it's definitely in my top 3.
Yeah.
Washington is my top state.
Of course. I've never been to Washington.
Well, we're going to make that happen. We're going to absolutely make that happen. And that's a good segue to talking about the Pacific Northwest. So me and you are going to be meeting up shortly in Oregon for the Overland Expo Pacific Northwest. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get to that, I still want to do a little more catching up with you. Give me some of the highlights of the 3 places that you went. You went to Colorado, you went to Wyoming, you were in Utah. What would you say were the top highlights, the memorable moments? Something's going to tell me it's going to be more about people because you were hanging out, partying a lot.
Well, we definitely were hanging out with a group of friends, which is interesting. The way that this overland world works is like all of the people that were hanging out, I did not know 2 months prior. So I had met, a couple of them I met there. Some of them I had met at that event down in Bisbee, Arizona. And so we all kind of like had messaged each other. Why don't we all meet at a location? So that's kind of how the Utah thing came up. And then Michael, the guy that I had met him through another friend that I had met. So it was this big connection, and we all ended up out there with different backgrounds too. I mean, so you know, we had Brian. He has an Chevy Astro van, right? 2-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive. You know, everywhere from that to my friends Jesse and Jordan have a pickup truck and a travel trailer. And then we had some Jeeps, and we had a Land Cruiser, and then my truck. So an assortment of different stuff. And that's what's kind of cool about the whole thing is that we talked about this. I talked about this with Michael from Overland Vanlife. It's like run what you brought, and there was some trepidation as to whether or not some of the vehicles were going to do okay on some of the track, particularly where we camped. It was a road that was had ledges. Had some step down ledges, and we had to get out and move some rocks for the trailer. And funny story, of all the people that had the most problem, I think it was me leaving there. My truck was, rocking and rolling all over the place. It was fine, but that was the first time ever that one of my kitchen cabinets opened up. Oh. And of course, 2 bottles of hot sauce. Actually, one of them, I think you and I got together, salsa, came out, crashed, and went all over the floor. So I opened up the door and I came in. Oh my God, the cleanup was my eyes are watering. It was like, because it was all hot and spicy. My whole truck was full of hot spice. So anyways, that was from that road, getting in and out of there.
Well, that's definitely a standout moment because I know your rig and I've never seen anything move before. So that's kind of amazing.
It was a pretty, I would call it ledgy, there was a lot of slick rock out there. So it was an interesting, I definitely, that was an opportunity for me to push the limits of my truck, probably past where I've been before, or particularly in the last couple of months, I've definitely taken it backcountry more than it had in the prior year. with maybe the exception of some places in Baja. But so it's getting a workout. So that's a highlight. And I would say other highlights were just, definitely people. It's always about the people for me. That's always the highlight, really.
So you finally got a chance to use your new TEMBO TUSK fireplace or fire pit. I would love to find out. I'm not looking for a review. Just kind of give me your first impressions about since you started using it, because I have some very strong opinions about it.
I love it. I never heard of it when when we went to Overland Expo and I ended up with the fire pit. I didn't know that TEMBO TUSK made it. And probably because I'm living off grid half the time, not paying attention to what's going on. But so I got a chance to test it out. And then I also went, because I was in Montrose, Colorado, I got to go to Home Depot, got all the fittings and the parts and the stuff to connect it with a quick disconnect to my truck, similar to the way my Scottle's hooked up. So that's been awesome. And the advantages of the thing is it takes up no room. It fits in my little toolbox under the truck. It sets up in, I don't know, if you can't set it up in a minute, you're doing something wrong. It's quick setup, and above and beyond everything else, so many of these states out west have fire bans and forest fires and all sorts of issues. This is so controlled. It's little, sits there, and what I like about it, doesn't seem to get hot underneath. But if you sit around that thing, it puts out some heat at you. Like, it works. We sat around in the Utah desert. It was going down to the mid 50s, and we sat around that thing, 5 of us, and it was great.
I'm very happy with mine. As you know, I hung out with Jerry at the Northwest Overland Rally, and then I took him through the forest of Washington down to the border to Oregon to the Adventure Van Expo. So I got an elongated experience with Jerry using the fire pit. And, for a business, a company that's being innovative and inventing things, it's kind of hard to come up with the next big thing. And I didn't think much of him creating a fire pit, just being honest. It was, another fire pit. But it's pushing all the right buttons. And I've predicted to Jerry that it's going to do far better than he's expecting it to do, because it answers a lot of questions or solves a lot of problems that are happening and that are only going to get worse.
Yep.
You already kind of mentioned it already that, everywhere you go now, there's fire bans, there's more rules and regulations against fires. And I used to have, I still do, it's in my garage. I have that big round one.
I do too.
It takes up so much space. You got to think about that. Now with this new fireplace, I just have it stuck in between some seats in a place that I wasn't carrying anything, so it's not using up any space. I think he came out with it at the right time. He sold out of them we got there Thursday. Friday was the official opening at the Adventure Expo, right? Yeah. We just had one lit because we were cold and we wanted to sit around it. He sold them all out that night. He didn't have any to sell the whole weekend. It's
amazing because, as we all know, space is a limited commodity when you are living on the road or even going for the weekend in a Jeep. So, if you don't have to carry wood takes up room, right? And like you said, I have the same thing. I have one of those round fire pits. I think I got rid of it now, or maybe it's in my mom's basement somewhere, but it doesn't fold up. It takes just as much room as three bushel packets of wood or whatever. So yeah, I think it's ingenious, and I can see it selling out for sure. Yeah.
And one of the most important features to me is it actually packs a punch. I'm not cold around it. We were also at the Northwest Overland Rally, and we decided to sit around it while we were at the raffle. And it was 5 of us all sitting around it. It was very cold, and we were fine. We still had to wear jackets. It was that cold, but it made the difference in between being comfortable and calling it a night.
All in a night, climbing in bed. That's right. Yeah, same with us. Same with us in Utah. Same scenario.
So Jerry, being the businessman, he's somewhat skeptical, but I think this is one of his best creations, is this fire pit. And I don't even think he's fully seeing the success that he's going to have with it, because there's only going to be more and more of these fire bans. From all of these events I've been going to, there's more and more people getting into this segment, becoming nomadic, and looking for the best options. And this is so far one of the best options that you can get all around. So I think I'm more hyped about it than he is.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then the other thing I didn't mention is at the end of the night, when you're done, you turn it off. You go to bed. You know, you're not worrying about the embers, the wood, the coals sitting down in there hot, finding water, wasting water that may be in short supply to, you know, put water on the fire to put it out. It's just, I mean, hey, for me, you know, so here's the true story. I got a solo stove on my roof of the truck. You know, it's the solo stove, which is great, stainless steel, you know, smokeless. The technology behind that thing is awesome too. I haven't used it in forever because of the fire bans, because I have to carry wood. And honestly, most of the things I found, it was better out east. Out west, when you go to collect wood, in many places you can get actual firewood. It's big. It's you know, so unless you're carrying a chainsaw, it doesn't fit in the solo stove. So now you're back to being forced to have a fire on the ground, which is, you know, that's a no-no. That's the thing that we don't want. So, you know, I don't know. Hey, it's like I use Starlink now for my internet. In fact, you know, you're talking to me on Starlink right now because I got crappy cell coverage here, and that's modern technology. That's where we moved to. So, you know, maybe it's not as traditional. You get the wood smoke and all this other stuff, but it's the future. It's a great. I think that's a killer product.
So I didn't have this on my topics, but let's talk about Starlink. First of all, from my observations, everything sounds good. You're not pixelated. There's no stutter. I would have never known you were on Starlink if I didn't know. Talk about your experience so far.
I can keep it really short. If you're a nomad or you're somebody that travels a lot, off the beaten track, this is a game changer. This is the absolute best piece of equipment that you could buy, period. There's no question in my mind. And I've only had it now for, I don't know, a couple of weeks on board. I've moved to a bunch of different locations at this point. I get speeds. I've been finding speeds right now. I just tested it before I went on the call. I got 220, 220 speed. These are like internet home speeds. So it's a game changer, like for people that want to work on the road and park in the swells, because there's no coverage there. Yeah, I can't say enough good stuff about it. I mean, for me, at $135 a month, it's you know, that's like you know, a quarter of a tank of my gas.
Well, I've talked to a lot of people who have purchased the Starlink, and they have nothing but glowing reviews about it. So I think I already told you I'm going to get one before I head out to Alaska. I think it's the perfect solution from what everybody's telling me. And one of the selling points to me was when we were in Flagstaff, Uncharted allowed me to use his signal, and I was able to download a 2-hour podcast. So sold. Yeah.
And next, so I'm camped here with 2 other people right now. So 2 of the 3 of us have Starlink. Him and I were testing it yesterday, and we walked, pretty far down the road here to this little bridge over. There's a river behind me here, and we're picking up both of our routers. So not only is we're bringing in good signal, the router that comes with this seems to be very good. It really disperses. So, if you don't have Starlink, go on the road with a buddy, because, we've been potting together at this event that I went to this past weekend. I would say there were 150 trucks. There was at least 25 Starlinks there.
Wow. And
So,
this is
it
still
was
new.
7 trucks probably.
It's still new, so to have that many is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the Starlink, we've talked about the TEMBO TUSK. Let's go back to itineraries that me and you have. We were talking about we're going to be meeting up in the Pacific Northwest. Some things we're going to talk about, some things we're going to keep a secret. But we got big plans, right?
We do. Absolutely.
And I think most people who are coming have big plans. Everyone I talk to, whether they're a vendor, whether they're just somebody visiting, whether they're a restaurant in the area, everyone seems to have big plans. So I am so ecstatic. I am so looking forward to this event, looking forward to hanging out with you, some friends I've made recently, old friends. This is going to be the bomb.
Totally agree. What I would tell people that are listening to us right now on the podcast, come out and see Phil and I at the show, and love to meet everybody that we have not met yet. Love to see everybody, obviously, that we know. And we're gonna be having our usual party, and come see us about that, and we'll get you in.
Right, and that's all we're gonna say about that part. We got big plans, right?
Big plans.
I think we will be the life of the party.
Yes.
So offline, I have so much more to tell you about that, but let's get off that. Do you have an idea of what, are you going to be getting there a few days ahead of time, or are you going to be getting there?
My plan is at least a few days ahead of time. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. So
I'm going to wait to Jackson tomorrow. My plan for Idaho is really to transit it, is not to make, take a, nice time, scenic drive through it, but I'm not going to linger anywhere. So I'm going to probably book it. Once I get to Jackson, I'll probably book it towards end.
Well, there are a lot of people I talk to who plan on getting to the event a few days early. So the downtown in Bend is going to be jam-packed with overlanders. Also, the national forests that surround the area, a lot of people are talking about not going to the actual event and staying, but camping and coming in every day. Yep. So I think this is going to be a pretty unique expo versus all the other expos. One being the ratio of people who decide to camp outside as opposed to camping in the event. I think that's going to be unusual.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, probably got a lot of day pass people coming in. Man, it looks like a great facility. So I am super excited because I have never been to the state of Oregon.
And I know that blows people's mind when you say that.
I only got 4 states left that I've never, ever been to, and that's one of them.
Have you been to Africa? Yeah, I've been to Africa. Have you been to Europe? Yeah, I've been to Europe. Have you been to Oregon? No. So let's talk about the venue. I have something, some of the information that's been given to me so far. They're predicting over 300 exhibitors for a first-time expo event. So that's huge. That's Overland Expo West numbers before this year.
Correct.
So they're jumping into the deep end with this event right off the bat. And I think they needed to, because of the location, it's going to appeal to so many people. I think all of their predictions on numbers are going to be inaccurate. I think they're going to surpass all of their expectations.
I agree. Yep.
You're going to be teaching there once again, right? Have you found out?
I'm waiting for a few ads. I'm not sort of my schedule quite yet, and I do know that I have. I will be doing the Baja, Mexico. I believe actually I think there's 2 of them. I'm going to be doing that, and I know I'm going to be doing basically an overview of building out my current home. I'm going to be talking about that, so I know that's set up on the schedule as well.
So 2 different classes. They're going to keep you busy.
Maybe more, but that's what I know about.
So did they give you a free day this time?
I don't know yet. I'm hoping.
You definitely took advantage of it.
I did. Yeah.
So I want to talk about some of the things that I've done since we last saw each other. First, I want to talk about the Northwest Overland Rally, which I got to convince you, you got to show up next year. I tried to get you to come this year. I know you had other things to do, but I got to get you to come. It's an experience. If you were talking about the event you went to in Wyoming and what you liked about it, well, I'm telling you, there's 10 times that at the Northwest Overland Rally. You got to go.
I definitely.
The reason why I wanted to talk about the Northwest Overland Rally is because there were signals given from that make me feel more positive about the expo. And what it was is they did not have their usual numbers. Now, normally you would be like, oh, where are all these people? But I happen to know some of these people, and they, it's a financial choice. It's a few $100s to go to these different events, not mentioning
time,
right?
Yeah.
Time and gas and all those things. So especially with the gas, people have had to make a decision. And most people I've talked to, they didn't go to the Northwest Rally for the very first time because they wanted to make sure that they were able to do it big when they went to Overland Expo Pacific Northwest.
Yep.
But the people who did come, it was a fun time. Because it was a little smaller, it was a little more intimate, it was a little more social, if that's even possible, because this is a very social event. And I had the opportunity to cook on the TEMBO TUSK for Jerry at his booth. So I was excited about that. I've always observed others do it, and I always just wanted to do it. So it was fun doing that. And then me and Jerry, like I said, I took him through the forest. I had two other people with me, Bud Nixon, who you may know. If you don't know him, you'll know him after the expo. I'll make sure that happens. And another friend of mine, B Wild Journals, or Neil. Anyway, we basically went through the forests of Washington all the way to Adventure Van Expo. And we just feasted and we slept and we took in the beautiful views. It was a great time. And then we went on to Adventure Van Expo, which was something I want to talk to you about. I was totally out of my element. I don't know much about vans. It's a totally different culture than going to Overland Expos or anything like that. Have you gone to like a van expo or anything like that?
So these last two events I've gone to now, the one this past weekend, they're technically, I would call them van life gatherings. So they were very targeted towards vans. However, this particular organizer, Journal of Lost Time, recognizes that there's a blend. There's a merging. So, you get rigs like mine, and you get schoolies and different kinds of stuff. Storyteller Overland was there. They're pretty, famous in the Springer market. So, I'd be curious when you say very different, tell me what you're thinking, because I'm interested.
I mean, a bunch of different things. Where should I start? One, I see more people jumping into this van segment who are making major decisions about what they're going to do and totally uneducated about it. I'll give you an example. I met a lady who was telling me that she was ready to buy a van there she was ready to sign a deal and everything at the event. And I just asked her a few questions, not interrogating, just curious. I was kind of excited for her until I discovered she didn't know anything about this big decision that she was about to make. So one of the things I noticed was there's more opportunity to make a major decision that could change your life. I mean, you're talking about $200,000+ vehicles. So that was one.
I agree, but I see that a little bit different. I agree, but here's the thing: is right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not making a judgment on this. I feel like the vans, and when we're talking vans, most of the time they're Ford Transits, Mercedes Sprinters, or Ram ProMasters. So those are the three vans. It's not. Those are the general ones. they appear to me to be the entry market, meaning that on a high-end level, if you've got a lot of money, you're going to drop 200 grand. But they're also in the entry market for the self-doers, the DIYers that are going to pick up a used van that, came from Amazon or came from somebody, delivery company or something, and they get into them fairly inexpensively. And this is where I agree with you, is that because that is, for some reason, they seem like they are more, I don't know when I want to use the word accessible or known about, maybe just so people that don't know anything and they say, I want to go camping and travel around and live on the road full time, go to the van, as opposed to a big overland rig or a Jeep with a rooftop tent or a turtleback trailer or, many other options. That's this, I call it the simple option. It's not simple. I'm not saying
at all.
that, but I feel like that might be the assumption. And I think that's where you're correct, that you end up with, because I met somebody, it's funny, I met somebody that I had asked, just the same with you. I walked up and said, hey, you live, the usual questions. Do you live full time? What do you do? Do you work on the road, blah, blah, blah. And, and then it leads into like, well, what do you do? How much water do you have on board? I don't know. How much, power, like, do you ever have I don't know. Well, what if something breaks? I don't know. And I'm like, whoa, it's like owning a house, but don't know anything about, I don't know, getting your lawn mowed. You know what I mean? It's like, I agree.
Yeah, I talked to someone who wasn't even aware that regular insurance isn't going to cover everything on your vehicle, which is like, you should know that before you buying the vehicle. I almost feel like it should be a requirement I'm going to talk about that second. There should be some kind of requirement that you have full coverage insurance that also covers all of the other things, because it's a lot of money being invested.
Because it's an RV. Remember, what I think they're not seeing it as is all of our trucks are RVs essentially, because we're taking a vehicle and we're putting things in them.
And that's a good segue into something. The part that was disturbing to me is how many people don't know anything about this next move that they're going to make. They've literally just been looking at Instagram and YouTube and say, I want to do that. They haven't said, hey, let me rent a van and see if I even like being on the road for 2 weeks or a month. Yep. And they're basically talking about financing a $200,000 vehicle and moving out their house. And they're basing it off of social media.
Right.
And the more disturbing part was, there are people who are financing these vehicles
30 years.
Yes. Yes.
Thought that.
It was just kind of disturbing. And this is not to say I don't see this in other segments of the nomadic life. I mean, you can go to Overland Expo and find somebody with a Jeep or whatever kind of vehicle. The vehicle's financed and everything else is on it financed, and they've taken out the longest term deal that they could to finance it. So that's not unusual, but the dollar amounts are more and the length of time are more. And it's such that you could ruin your life if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and a lot of them could be. So I'll give you this as a disadvantage and an advantage. Some of them are what I would call underprepared equipment-wise, and but let's take that as a good thing for a second, because they're actually getting out, in some cases, getting out and actually doing stuff without getting sucked into. Here's my rag on the overland culture. So we can complain about the van side. Let's complain about the overland side. The overland side is almost the reverse. They're going to go out and buy every single gadget, gimmick, and gizmo and strap it on the side of the truck so everybody in the world can see it, and probably not know how to use it and never use it. So whereas the van culture, they're just like, give me a white van. Let me go in and I got a pillow. I'm good to go. so it's like almost underprepared. And I see that.
With all of that said, I did leave the event very interested in the van life. The people who I met who were not making a decision on whether to do it or not, but already had jumped in, and this is what they do and this is their life. They were like a cornucopia of different types of people, but they all had a general vibe that was similar. So I enjoyed everybody that I met. I could see myself being a part of the van life, actually.
I like the way we're addressing this, because I'm parked right now here with everybody I'm with is van lifers. By definition, they all have vans. I'm the only guy here that does not have a van per se. And I find that I enjoy hanging out with them in many cases more than I enjoy hanging out with what I'm going to call the old school overland guys. And not to rag on them again, but oftentimes they get obsessed or dig so deep into the whole, what's your gear ratio and what so talk about the truck and blah, 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 blah. And it goes on and on and on. I'm like, no. What I find in the van life culture is they talk about places that they're going and things that they're seeing. But even more, and the reason that these van life gatherings are so big and so many of them is because they're all about the social thing. So they travel so Bert parked next to me. He came from Southern California. Valerie here came out of Colorado. And the guy on the other side here, they were out of, I forget where they're out of, but they're coming from long distances to come to this event in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming. They're not coming to prove their truck or to show off gear in the woods. And oftentimes they're not coming even for, in this case, not that it's not incredibly scenic here, but they weren't coming to go to the Tetons or to go to Yellowstone. They're coming here to meet in a field, to socialize, to have live music, to share food, share travel stories and stuff. That I noticed is my definition of van life. Now, I don't know if yours is the same or different or what you've seen, but
no, we're on the same page. I also noticed that within the van life is more focused on gathering experiences and socializing. And it seems like in the overlanding space, it's more geared toward it's been hoard out. It's more about gear, and it's more about status. People it's more egos involved in the community. Whereas I see in the van life, everybody's just, hey, let's party. Hey, let's go to the next place. Hey, tell me about your experience.
Right.
It's not about one-upping you because I have an inch taller rim, or I've got rotor packs and you don't, or something. I don't hear too much talk about the gear unless someone is informing somebody, hey, you should get this because it's going to help you get this Starlink so you can stay out longer. The discussions about gear are more educational and more about helping each other. Whereas when I hear it in the overland community, it's more about one-upping each other.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, I would say I travel more. My style and my travel and my where I've been lately hooking up, even in Baja this winter, is more van life than it is overland. I would say I live more of a van life than I do an overland life.
And I know this is a touchy topic, but I'm going there. A lot of the people that we're classifying like van life and overlanders, well, actually, the majority of the overlanders aren't even overlanders. They're just off-road. They're just off-roaders. And the reality is a majority of the van life, at least in my definition and the definition that it used to be, they're actually more overlanders than these people who are dying to have that title of an overlander.
Yeah. I hate the word overland and I hate the word van life. My preferred word is nomad.
I like that.
These people are nomads. They wander, and nomad could mean that you do it permanently or you do it on a weekend basis or whatever, but you're nomadically traveling around, and it doesn't pigeonhole you into I feel like if you're an overlander, you got to have roto packs. And if you're a van, it has to be white, but if you're a nomad, everything flies. You could be in an Astro van, a Sprinter van, a Storage Stevenson, or a Jeep. It doesn't matter.
But to me, that's actually really what an overlander is. They're a nomad. There's somebody who's using a vehicle as a tool to get around and have life-changing experiences and to socialize with other nomads.
Yeah.
So I really feel like they've distorted the title of overland.
I agree. Yeah.
Because
by the way, the word van life is somewhat is negative in some spaces as well, because sometimes I feel like that's pigeonholing them into they're hippies, or they're just they're borderline homeless, or or whatever. There's all sorts of connotations that are not, I found to be completely not true. I mean, one of the fascinating things I've found so far about the whole van life thing is that there's people from all different spaces. I mean, all different spaces, and that's interesting. To me, that's what I love. That
I 100% agree with that. I've sat around a fire of van lifers where there's a billionaire, there's someone that's a student, there's and everything in between. But you don't know who is who, because that's not the conversation. Nobody's trying to one up each other. Oh, I used to run a multi-million-dollar business, or none of that kind of stuff. Everybody just wants to be friends and have, like I say, life-changing experiences with one another. So I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you. And that's probably why I left, even though I had some negative things that came from going to the van life thing. I did leave with an overall positive experience and more curiosity about that life, and even thinking that it may fit in more with my future plans than anything else.
See, now, admittedly, your experience was slightly different, because your event was geared towards sales of basically pre-built commercialized vans, where my experience has been van life events where I would tell you this past weekend, I would say that 75% of the vans are self-built. I mean, yes, there are some, production ones like the Rebel, Storyteller. There's a bunch of commercial companies out there, and there were some of them there. But I would say the vast majority are people that have built their own trucks.
Storyteller is a very they're a big growing brand, because huge. While they were there, they were also at Van Expo, and they had a huge.
And they were out with us too.
So they're everywhere. They're everywhere, and they had a huge presence at the Van Expo. So I don't know much about Storyteller. I know who they are, but they're definitely the big up and coming brand as I see it.
But it's for a certain segment of the market, because I've met a fair amount of van lifers that simply are not able to, or not willing to, afford a $150,000 to $250,000 truck. They're just not going to do it. Myself included, by the way. So, so there is. I'm not going to say it's just there's not a market for it. Hell, people are buying $1 million, big overland rigs, and they're certainly buying almost $2 million RVs. So there's a market.
My only concern is I just wasn't aware of how much financing had to do with that. There are a lot of people financing their lives away. Some people are taking on financing with balloon payments and adjustable percentage rates and all types of stuff, and long term, like you said, 30 years. So that's my only concern. Other than that, everything I saw, everything I learned was very positive to me.
Yeah.
But the money end is always going to be the bad part.
None of us want to spend money. Well, I mean, come on. Nobody wants to spend money. You don't care how much money you have. You don't want to spend it.
So I just had a brain fart. I was going to say something to you, and I don't know what it was about. Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about. We talk about trucks and Unimogs and Stevensons and vans and all of this stuff. And something we haven't really covered, and I know that you're into, is the two wheels, the motos. They don't get a lot of love in the community, and they're a big community, and they're one of the most enthusiastic parts of this segment. I remember going to the expo, the most recent one in Flagstaff, and I would say as part of one of the best parties that was thrown by the actual event was the moto party. There was no comparison. There was nothing even close to their party. If you walk over to their section where they camp, they're one of the most in tune, social groups, but they're almost treated like a stepchild at these events. What I'm leading to is I've been looking at the schedule for Overland Expo Pacific Northwest and a lot of the programs and things, and it looks like they're trying to change that. So if you're on two wheels, if you're a motorcycle guy, you are not a second-class citizen at this Pacific Northwest event at all. And I saw the beginnings of it at Flagstaff, but I think they've even stepped it up a notch. They've got ceremonies, round tables, all types of special guests. So, and then the star of the show always, Eva Rubert, a friend of yours. I casually know her. So I just wanted to mention that you don't have to be on four wheels to want to come to this. There's a place for you, and it's a substantial place. You're not second tier.
No, there's a huge segment for that, and I mean, in fact, behind me here in the, I'm actually. This is another thing I love about out west in Wyoming. I'm literally, you can't make this stuff up. I have camped in a city park, and it is the nicest campsites I have ever been at in my entire life. It's free. I am parked on a river. I haven't even run my fan at nighttime because the river noise. I'm like, 15 feet from the river, and it is beautiful. Looking out at snow-covered mountains over here. It's a city park. But anyways, there's a bunch of motorcycle guys that have been coming in and going. I get the opportunity. I'm fortunate enough to get the opportunity to talk to most of them. They always come up to me because I've got an adventure bike hanging off the back of my truck. So they always come up and go, "Oh, you got a KTM, blah, 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 blah." So, yeah, there's a lot of them out there. And there's, for all those of you that are not familiar with the two-wheel adventure side of the things, I would tell you that there's probably more of them, and there's more of them that are on the road full-time and all the time than you would ever imagine. Like, I see them. They come in with their big side bags and all their stuff. And I talked to one guy yesterday that, he's been on the road for 2.5 years on a motorcycle.
Well, I think that community doesn't get the credit that they deserve for a lot of things. For instance, a lot of overlanders love to take the BDRs, the backcountry discovery routes that we have throughout the United States that usually traverse the states. Well, it was the motorcycle community that created those routes. They wouldn't exist. You wouldn't be able to access GPX tracks and take these routes if it weren't for them first.
That's right.
There's a lot of innovation that came in the motorcycle community that was transposed into the overland community, primarily because you can't carry that much with you when you're on the bike. So there's a lot of innovation that was started there that came over to here. They don't get the credit that they deserve, and I really don't understand that.
Well, let's hope we change that, and we'll see about Overland Pacific Northwest. But I have a good feeling. I agree with you. I think they're getting more and more credit.
Yes. I wanted to talk about something. We're going to kind of almost be reiterating a conversation we've had before on the podcast, but I still think that it's something that we need to cover again, and maybe even again and again and again. I want to talk about education, something that you're heavily involved in. You're not just some nobody that they were like, oh, he's got an orange van an orange truck that people recognize, and he's popular on social media. So let's make him a teacher. Let's make him a trainer. That's not how it goes at Overland Expo. You've got to have credentials, whether it be some formal credentials being for training for recovery through some organization, whether it's you've actually been to these places and you've actually done things. So I want to talk about, how do you become a trainer? How do you get involved in this? I don't mean what you do to become one. What is it that qualifies you to be one? Because I don't think people fully understand that when you go into Overland Expo, the level of trainers is top notch.
The level of trainers is very high because basically what they're seeking is people that have experience across the board. So they may be teaching a winch recovery course, but they've also been to Africa, done the backcountry roads in Vermont. Maybe they've gone across Baja on 2 wheels on a motorcycle. So I mean, it's experience. But I will tell you, as an instructor now, and this is like my 10th year, I learned amazing amounts of stuff just teaching classes, like from the people that are attending. So it goes both directions. But the education level, the education is, first of all, at Overland Expo, it's number one education event in the world for the overland space.
Agreed.
Period. And the people that are there are very qualified. But that's not to say that if you are out there listening to us right now, looking for or thinking about maybe in the future I can be an instructor, you absolutely can, because I'm quite sure that you've had an experience. You've done something. Maybe you just drove from Costa Rica to, through Mexico and up to Alaska. Well, you are qualified then to talk about that. You've done it. And that's the big thing, doing it. They don't want people talking about, well, I did some research on a map and I read a book about this. So I've never been there. I don't know where that content is. And that's not, no. So, but I highly encourage people to get involved in being an instructor. You will learn so much, for one, and you'll meet so many people through that. And many of the people I've now traveled with, or done different projects with, or Phil and I have met through this, and now we're in a podcast talking to you guys. So, yeah, a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. I hear people talk about the overland experience, and they're like, I'm not going to pay that amount of money to take training at one of these events. I'll go to the event, but I'm not going to pay that extra for the training. And when you look at the dollar amount of being able to camp, have a good time, get all of these different types of trainings, if you were to just itemize that and try to get the same thing somewhere else, it would be way more to get that kind of training, way more.
And the training is so important, because it's not only training about things that you may be doing in the future. A lot of it has to do with ethical things and, respecting the environment and just, things that are do's and don'ts, it's so important to immerse yourself in the whole thing, because over the course of a weekend like that, the Overland Experience Pass, you'll meet so many people that, well, somebody can walk up to you and I and say, well, what about Mexican Hat? Can you have a fire there? These are questions that are important. And you and I could answer that question and say, oh, yeah, you could have a fire up here, but no, you can't when you're parked in outside Flagstaff in the, National Forest there, or, whatever. So there's informational things, there's ethical things, there's, do right. The community part of this whole thing, that's the other side of education, is the community side of it. You see trash. We did a trash pickup at this event that I just had over the last weekend. Everybody went out for an hour and picked up trash. Nothing to do with us, nothing to do with what we created, but that's what you should be doing, because one guy that throws something out there is what's going to get you guys banned from a place that you really want to go.
Yes. Yes. It's funny you mentioned that. On the most recent trip that I had, we had to do 2 recoveries, and each person, one person didn't know how to use a winch that they had on the vehicle, and they couldn't find the controller, so we couldn't use the winch. And then there was another person in a stock 4x4, which I have no problem with a person, but it was not capable of doing what it was trying to do. And he was stuck in like waist high mud. And he didn't have pretty much anything that he could self-recover from. And he really didn't have anything to help us to recover. We had to pull out our winches and our extension ropes to pull him out. And I just thought,
and the issue with that is, let's say you weren't there, or even if you are there, oftentimes there's more damage has occurred to the trail.
That part.
Because you recovering them in a roundabout way is not necessarily as efficient or as non-damaging as them recovering themselves.
And that's where I was headed. If you saw how far he dug himself into the mud, he basically ruined the trail. So the slightest little rain is going to go into these channels that he created and make it impossible for the next person to come. And they've reached a point in these national forests, BLM land and stuff like that, where when they see a trail messed up, they do one or two things. They'll say, oh, well, we're just going to leave it as is. We're not going to, fix this again for somebody to tear it up again. And the or part is they'll say, you know what? Let's just close this gate. And we don't have to worry about this anymore. So
fortunately, it's their liability. They are often on the hook to recover somebody, or if they get into a life-threatening situation. Now they're using resources to get these people out of the woods. So like Phil said, it's a lot easier to just close the gate.
And back to the liability portion, a lot of the liability is probably going to come from litigation from the person who got stuck, but they bent their axle or a quarter panel when you were recovering them, you damaged their vehicle in some way, and then they want to sue you. Yep. So we're literally cannibalizing our own trails, our own freedoms by doing stupid things.
Yep, I agree. Yep.
What do you have planned for after Pacific Northwest? Are you staying in the area?
That is going to be an announcement that's coming soon. Can't talk about it quite yet, but we'll see.
Okay. All right. Hopefully we'll hear it here first.
You were definitely first.
Okay.
We'll be doing a podcast when we get together.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that too, of course.
Because we like to do podcasts out in the woods or overlooking a cliff or something. We're going to find something good to do it at.
Oh, I have many locations for us to go to. I promise you that. You just tell me what kind of location you want. Back to the event. We won't have to go far from the event to find some awesome scenic location that we can practically trip into a scenic location. So I'm really curious about what this news. I'm looking forward to hearing it. Have you been cooking any delicious food? I can't do a podcast and not talk about food just a little bit.
I know. Actually, we're going to be wrapping up the podcast because we're about almost at an hour, I think. Yes. Because I got a code, because I'm an hour different. So you're in Pacific time right now. I'm in Mountain time. Yeah. Oh, I'm cooking on the TEMBO TUSK. Yeah, I think tonight's going to be something special. Everybody that knows me knows I like a rice base. I'll do a rice base or a couscous base, and then we just start throwing stuff at it. And a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of water.
Well, I can't get into the details here on the podcast. You'll just people will have to just show up to Pacific Northwest and observe. But I've put together a awesome crew of Scottle chefs. And I think you'll really enjoy the kind of food that I mean, top of the line guys. They're not just throwing hot dogs on there. They're cooking cuisine. So I think you're going to really enjoy the food that we eat the whole time that we're at the event. Now, you're being very gracious. I know that you have an emergency to take care of.
Yes, I do.
And you have
Which, by the way, has to do with, can't really say what it is, but also has to do with making sure that everybody's happy after an event and doing some cleanup that was inadvertently missed. So I need to go take care of something from the past weekend's event. I volunteered to settle or solve a problem.
So I was leading up to saying thank you for being professional and squeezing the time in for us to get this podcast. I didn't want to go another week, so that was great to get this done. And I'm kind of glad you had something to do, because we'd end up talking and talking and talking. I don't usually know how to end talking with you.
That could be good. But that's why we usually go to bed. When we hang out, we go to bed late because we're sitting around our fire, and yep, it's a late night usually.
All right, so we're going to kind of end it abruptly. I apologize if you guys were looking for more, but he has some. You got some fires to put out, and you actually set aside this time, even though you had something else to do this podcast. So thanks.
Absolutely. Look forward to doing it. And as you guys out there in podcast world know, Phil and I are going to be doing these more frequently, probably going forward. We're going to be doing this a lot, and probably bringing some interesting guests on too. I got some ideas.
Yes, we both do. Yes, on that. We've got to talk about that a lot. So I'm going to end it. I'm going to, you know how I do. I'm going to look into the camera and end this real quick. You guys know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully I'll see you here or on the trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.